We're going to change gears a little bit and talk about Le'Veon Bell because he's been a story so far this offseason for the NFL side of things. No long-term deal done between the two, talking about the Steelers' leadership, GM Kevin Colbert, and the Le'Veon Bell camp here. So where do we stand with Bell? So his agent confirmed that Bell plans on skipping training camp and returning later this year. His agent also said, quote, Bell wanted to retire as a Steeler, but the practical reality is this is likely his last year in Pittsburgh. Now, Adam Schefter recently said on SiriusXM that Bell could sit out half the year in protest of the failed long-term deal. And I think that's the perfect way to say it. This was a failure on the part of the Pittsburgh Steelers for unable, for some reason, to get a long-term deal done with one of the premier bell cow running backs in the National Football League. And now there is extreme buzz out there that Le'Veon Bell is going to become a free agent and go to another team. We know he's going to become a free agent in 2019, and he may join another team out there. Now, Bell did the same thing last year, by the way, in terms of not showing up. He eventually signed his tender on September 1st, played for Pittsburgh throughout the regular season. He struggled in the earlier part of that year and then, began to ramp up a little bit there. Now, if Bell does sign this one-year tender here, the franchise tag, it's worth $14.54 million. So he would be a little crazy to skip out on the year and, not get this big-time contract here in terms of monetary amount, not in terms of longevity. So Le'Veon Bell, the situation with him, very much up in the air. So I am here to tell you why the Oakland Raiders are going to sign Bell in 2019. I have a list of reasons to go through. I will break it down reason after reason. And the Oakland Raiders make sense on a few fronts here. Number one, their current running back depth chart is fairly underwhelming if you're looking ahead to 2019 because Marshawn Lynch is going to become an unrestricted free agent, and he may very well retire. Doug Martin, who the heck knows what this guy can provide in the NFL anymore? And then Rashard, Washington, they're more complementary pieces for the Oakland Raiders. So if Marshawn Lynch decides to retire in 2019, there is a gaping hole on that Raiders running back depth chart where the Raiders desperately need some sort of reliable running back. Martin is not reliable. Rashard's a good player. Washington's a good player, but those two are not bell cow backs. Le'Veon Bell is a bell cow back, one of the premier RBs in the NFL, and a guy who I say has revolutionized the position with the way in which he runs the football. So I look at the depth chart here for Oakland, and it just yells at me, Le'Veon Bell should be on this team. So that's reason number one. The running back depth chart is underwhelming. Marshawn Lynch, I think, is going to move on and retire after 2019, especially if he gets dinged up a little bit. If he ends up getting hurt this season, I think he is done. All right, so that opens the door for Le'Veon Bell. Reason number two, Le'Veon Bell wants to be on a contender. All right, so I have no hard evidence per se to back this up, but if you're a running back used to being in the playoffs year in and year out, why would you rock the boat? Why would you go to a team like the Jets or the Colts or the Texans with perhaps salary cap space to play with over in those cities, but maybe not the Super Bowl aspirations or the reality like the Oakland Raiders have? The Raiders should be a playoff contender in 2018, and this season could be a tryout of sorts for Le'Veon Bell. Oakland has a franchise quarterback. Oakland has a big-time offensive line. I'm a big-time offensive line enthusiast, and when I look at that front five, I am impressed by it with Rodney Hudson and Gabe Jackson and Donald Penn. I know they have Colton Miller in town now as well. Kelechi Assembly is a road grader. A good cast of wide receivers and a defense that's good enough. Now, like I said, there's uncertainty out there with teams like the Colts, the Texans, the Jets that may give Bell a look, but those teams are not as close to being a Super Bowl contender as the Oakland Raiders are. Bell could be that final piece to the puzzle, if you will, at least on the offensive side. All right, so reason number one, depth chart's underwhelming. Reason number two, Bell wants to go to a contender. Reason number three is coming up, but first, you're watching the Cam Rogers Show presented by AutoList. If you're looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites, go to Autolist.com to browse the largest source of inventory on the web or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. Autolist.com. Cam Rogers with you guys as we go through this Le'Veon Bell segment. I'm telling you why he's going to Oakland in 2019. Here is reason number three, and I kind of hinted at it. Le'Veon Bell would be the final piece to the Super Bowl puzzle, or at the very least, a crucial piece to this Super Bowl puzzle here for the Oakland Raiders. And there are some high expectations for this team. There were very high expectations last offseason. That obviously did not pan out. I think the Raiders will be much better than they were last year. Can the Raiders win a Super Bowl in 2018? I won't rule it out. Can the Raiders win a Super Bowl in 2019 with Le'Veon Bell in the backfield? Yes, they can. Like I mentioned, Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson, the offensive line, Khalil Mack, Rashawn Melvin at cornerback, by the way. I'm a big fan of him. The pieces are there. And so if Le'Veon Bell is in that backfield and you got Richard in Washington and the complementary pieces around him, and you won't need them as much because Bell can take in a lot of carries in the NFL, the Raiders are going to be a team to be reckoned with. And so I think Le'Veon Bell is going to see Oakland perform well in 2018. Maybe the Raiders win the division, maybe they don't. Perhaps they get a wild card in the AFC West. And Bell says to himself, you know, I want to go play for Chucky, for John Gruden. And that's a big-time reason I actually don't have on your screen. It's a bonus reason. The John Gruden Chucky factor. That's another piece to all of this in terms of why Le'Veon Bell will play for the Oakland Raiders. There's no coach in the NFL quite like this guy, folks. He's been out there, you know, in the broadcast booth and interacting with NFL players in a unique way that current NFL coaches have not been. John Gruden has been doing the quarterback camp, of course, for ESPN. He was doing Monday Night Football for so many years, interacting with players in production meetings and all this stuff, and maybe going out for coffee afterwards. So it's those little touches, if you will, that are unique to John Gruden, and the perspectives that he now has, I'm sure, are very unique, coming from the broadcast booth and now being a big-time, highly paid NFL head coach yet again. So I'm not ruling out the recruiting ability here of John Gruden as well. Now, a caveat to all of this, for all you Raiders fans getting all excited because I'm telling you the Raiders are getting Bell, salary cap space is brutal for Oakland. So they got to do some maneuvering on that roster, some salary cap cuts next offseason to make it happen. But if they do, Donald Penn, maybe they make Le'Veon Bell a thing in 2019. All right, so there you go.